Neil Alden Armstrong was born on August 5, 1930 in Washington Township, Ohio. He experienced his first flight at just 5 years old aboard a Ford Tri-Motor. While attending Bloom High School, he flew solo for the first time at 16 and earned his pilot's license. After graduating from high school, he enrolled at Purdue University in Indiana to pursue a degree in aeronautical engineering. Armstrong was enrolled under the Halloway Plan scholarship. Under this program, successful students completed 2 years of university education, then underwent 2 years of flight training and served 1 year as aviators in the U.S. Navy. They then returned to university to finish the remaining 2 years and graduate. After completing 2 years of university, Armstrong was called to the Navy in 1949. He joined Class 549 at Naval Air Station Pensacola in Florida to receive flight training. After passing his medical examinations, he completed his flight instruction in the North American SNJ trainer aircraft. On March 2, 1950, he made his first landing aboard the USS Cabot aircraft carrier. He then trained on the Grumman F-8F Bearcat at Naval Air Station Corpus Christi in Texas. On August 16, 1950, Armstrong became a fully qualified naval aviator and later that same year was assigned to VF-51, an all-jet squadron at NAS San Diego. On January 5, 1951, Armstrong made his first jet flight in a Grumman F-9F Panther. A few days after his promotion to lieutenant junior grade, he executed his first jet landing aboard the USS Essex aircraft carrier. At that time, the Korean War was ongoing. In June 1951, the USS Essex, together with VF-51, departed for Korea to carry out ground attack missions. During a low-altitude bombing run in the Korean War, he collided with a wire deliberately strung between two hills, shearing off part of his wing. According to Armstrong, he was flying at approximately 350 miles per hour at an altitude of 500 feet. Armstrong attempted to fly the aircraft toward friendly territory, but after losing one of the ailerons, he elected to eject using the ejection seat. He had planned to descend into the sea for rescue by a Navy helicopter, but the wind carried his parachute toward land, and he landed ashore. During the Korean War, Armstrong flew a total of 78 combat missions, spending 121 hours in the air. After his naval service, Armstrong returned to Purdue University and, in 1955, earned a bachelor's degree in aeronautical engineering. After graduating from Purdue, Armstrong joined the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA, at Edwards Air Force Base as an experimental research test pilot. On January 28, 1956, Armstrong married Janet Elizabeth Sheeran, whom he had met at university. Armstrong served as a project pilot on Century Series fighter aircraft, including the North American F-100 Super Sabre A and C variants, the McDonnell F-101 Voodoo, the Lockheed F-104 Starfighter, the Republic F-105 Thunder Chief, and the Convair F-106 Delta Dart. During his test pilot career, Armstrong flew a total of 200 different aircraft. The most notable among them were the Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star, the Boeing KC-135 Stratotanker, the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II, the North American F-86 Sabre, the Bell X-1B, the Douglas F-5D-1 Skylancer, the Boeing B-47 Stratojet, and the legendary North American X-15 powered by a rocket engine. Between 1960 and 1962, Armstrong flew a total of 7 missions in the North American X-15. On his 6th flight, on April 20, 1962, he climbed above 207,000 feet. During these X-15 missions, he reached speeds of up to Mach 5.74. Armstrong departed the Flight Research Center with a total of 2,400 flight hours. In 1962, NASA began accepting applications for its second group of astronaut candidates for the two-man Project Gemini spacecraft. Armstrong was among those who applied. In June 1962, he passed the medical examination. Then, in September 1962, NASA's Director of Flight Crew Operations, Deke Slayton, called Armstrong to ask if he would like to join NASA's 9-person astronaut corps. Armstrong accepted the offer without hesitation. He was one of two civilian pilots selected in that group. The other was Elliot C., a former naval aviator. On March 16, 1966, Neil Armstrong flew his first space mission as commander of Gemini 8, alongside David R. Scott in the pilot's seat. The mission's primary objective was to rendezvous with and dock to the unmanned Agena target vehicle launched 1 hour and 40 minutes earlier. In addition, the performance of the OEM's thrusters was to be tested, and David Scott was scheduled to conduct a 2-hour, 10-minute EVA. The Titan II launch vehicle carrying Armstrong and Scott lifted off at 11:41 and inserted them into orbit. They then maneuvered to match Agena's trajectory and completed a successful docking. After a short time, however, the number 8 OAMS thruster malfunctioned and began firing continuously, inducing a rapid spin. Armstrong remained calm, shut down all OAMS thrusters, and used the capsule's nose-mounted re-entry control system thrusters to halt the rotation. The two astronauts then aborted the remainder of the mission and executed a successful splashdown in the Pacific Ocean off Okinawa. They were subsequently recovered from the water by the USS Leonard F. Mason. Following the Gemini program, lunar missions transitioned to the Apollo program. The Apollo program would undergo numerous phases and tests before attempting a lunar landing. After the first uncrewed missions, crewed missions commenced. In this context, Apollo 7 became the first crewed flight, followed by Apollo 8, 9, and 10. During these missions, every spacecraft module was tested. They entered lunar orbit and then returned safely to Earth. However, the first attempt to land on the Moon's surface would occur with Apollo 11. To give its astronauts piloting practice for the lunar module's descent, NASA commissioned the Lunar Landing Research Vehicle LLRV. In May 1968, during an LLRV flight, Armstrong's controls failed at roughly 100 feet altitude and the vehicle began rolling. He ejected immediately using the seat's rocket and escaped unharmed. On December 23, 1968, Deke Slayton offered Armstrong the command of Apollo 11, the mission that would carry out the first crewed lunar landing. Buzz Aldrin was selected as lunar module pilot, and Michael Collins as command module pilot. On January 9th, the Apollo 11 crew assignments were officially confirmed. On July 16, 1969, Apollo 11 was launched from Kennedy Space Center aboard a Saturn V rocket. Approximately 3.5 days after launch, Apollo 11 entered lunar orbit. Following a series of preparations, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin began their descent in the lunar module Eagle. Meanwhile, Michael Collins, remaining aboard the command module Columbia, continued to orbit the Moon and awaited their rendezvous. During their descent in the lunar module, the astronauts received 1201 and 1202 alarms. These were caused by an executive overflow in the Apollo Guidance Computer, AGC, due to an excessive data load. The docking radar system should have been shut down during landing to avoid overloading the computer, but because it remained active, the AGC tried to process unnecessary radar data in addition to its landing tasks. As a result, lower priority processes were dropped and the system generated the 1201 and 1202 alarms. Armstrong and Aldrin didn't know what these error codes meant, so they immediately notified Capcom. Engineers in Houston rapidly evaluated the situation and cleared them to proceed with the landing. The astronauts continued their descent. After a while, Armstrong realized the landing area was unsafe. He took manual control of Eagle and began searching for a safe landing site. At 2017 UTC on July 20, 1969, Eagle successfully touched down on the lunar surface. After touchdown, Aldrin reported that the contact light had illuminated. Armstrong shut down the engine and Aldrin confirmed. A short time later, Armstrong announced the moon landing to the world, saying, "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." After resting for a time inside the lunar module, Armstrong and Aldrin completed their preparations to go outside. The Eagle's hatch was opened, and Armstrong began descending the ladder. At 2:56 UTC on July 21, 1969, he spoke the words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Thus, he went down in history as the first person to set foot on the moon. Approximately 19 minutes after Armstrong's first step, Buzz Aldrin also descended onto the lunar surface, becoming the second person to walk on the moon. The two astronauts spent a total of 2 hours and 30 minutes on the lunar surface, performing various tasks. After completing their activities on the lunar surface, Armstrong and Aldrin returned to the Eagle. A short time later, they fired the ascent engine and began ascending to rendezvous and dock with the Command and Service Module Columbia in lunar orbit. After docking in lunar orbit, the three astronauts successfully returned to Earth, splashing down in the Pacific Ocean, and were recovered from the sea by the USS Hornet recovery ship. In 1971, Armstrong resigned from NASA. He then served as a faculty member in the Department of Aerospace Engineering at the University of Cincinnati for 8 years, departing in 1980. Neil Alden Armstrong, an aerospace engineer, combat pilot, test pilot, astronaut, academic, and American hero, he passed away on August 25, 2012. He inspired countless people around the world through his contributions to space exploration and his remarkable achievements. For that giant leap for humanity, we extend endless thanks to him and to everyone who contributed to the Apollo missions. Thank you for watching my very first YouTube video. Every subscriber means a lot and helps me create more content on science, technology, history, and art. So please subscribe, and if you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like button.